My friend M24 told my boyfriend we were having an affair, but we're not. My boyfriend doesn't believe me. I'm a 25-year-old woman and I gotta admit, things are kinda crazy right now. My boyfriend M25 seems to be really upset and suspicious, and honestly I get why. But what's really getting to me is that he doesn't seem to trust me. Let me give you a bit of background. So me and my boyfriend Paul, we've been together for a solid 3 years now. Right from the get-go, Paul had some trust issues, probably because he'd been burned in the past by someone cheating on him. And hey, I totally get it. But I made sure to lay it all out on the table from day one. I've never cheated, never will, and I'm not about to let someone's past baggage mess things up for me. Paul's been pretty good about it, to be fair. Over these 3 years, I've worked hard to show him he can trust me. But now, out of the blue, it's like he's back to square one, doubting everything. And that just ain't cool with me. Trust is a two-way street, you know, and I've been driving on my side for miles now. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty frustrated and kinda hurt. I thought we'd moved past all this, but here we are again, stuck in the same old loop. Hopefully we can sort this out and get back on track, because I'm not about to throw away 3 years over some trust issues. I've always been straight up with him, you know. Never once did I give him a reason to doubt me or question my loyalty. Throughout these 3 years, he's asked to check out conversations I've had with guy friends twice. And you know what? I didn't hesitate to show him. But the second time around, I had to put my foot down. I told him straight up that it wasn't cool for him to treat me like I was up to something shady. I mean, seriously, I'm just talking to my friends here. I made it crystal clear that if he had any concerns or doubts because of something I said or did, I was totally down to talk it out. But if I hadn't done a single thing to make him question me, then he needed to trust me, plain and simple. To my relief, he saw where I was coming from. He agreed that I hadn't given him any reason to doubt me and promised not to bring it up again. And you know what? He kept his word. Never once did he ask to peek at my messages again after that. It felt good to have that understanding between us, like we were finally on the same page. So let me give you the lowdown on one of those convos he was curious about. It was with my buddy Roger. Now this goes back a couple of years before I even met Paul. Roger, bless his heart, had a bit of a crush on me and he let me know about it. I straight up told him I wasn't feeling it, and that was that. No drama, just clear communication. Fast forward to when I started dating Paul, and honestly, I didn't give Roger a second thought in that way. Our friendship was as platonic as can be. I mean, we'd chat about movies, music, life, typical friend stuff. There was absolutely zero reason for me to think there was anything more to it, especially since I was totally smitten with Paul at the time. A week ago, Roger and I decided to grab a cup of coffee together. Now, before I spill the beans on this, I gotta stress that I had no inkling whatsoever that he was still hanging on to those feelings. Anyway, there we were at the cafe, sipping our lattes when out of the blue, Roger launches into this whole spiel. I'm talking full-on passionate monologue mode. He starts pouring his heart out about how he still has feelings for me, how he thinks Paul isn't cutting it as a boyfriend, and how he's the perfect match for me. It was like a scene out of a soap opera. Now, I gotta admit, I was caught off guard. I mean, who wouldn't be? I pretty much stayed silent through the whole thing because, honestly, I didn't know what to say. It was just so unexpected and uncomfortable. But when he finally wrapped up his speech, I managed to muster up the courage to tell him where I stood. Maybe I wasn't as firm as I should have been, but hey, I was taken aback. I made it clear that I loved Paul, that there was no way I was ditching him, and that I needed to jet out of there ASAP. And let me tell you, that was one coffee date I was more than happy to bring to an abrupt end. I was shaken up by the whole thing, so I took my time getting home to calm down. But when I finally walked through the door, I was hit with a bombshell. Turns out, Roger had gone completely off the deep end. He'd sent Paul this epic novel of a Facebook message, spilling his guts about how head over heels he was for me. I'm talking full-on declaration of love, destiny, the whole 9 yards. And if that wasn't wild enough, he dropped some heavy hints without outright saying it that he and I had been carrying on some sort of secret fling for weeks. I was floored. I mean, seriously, what on earth was he thinking? Why would he go and stir up all this drama out of nowhere? It was like something straight out of a bad soap opera plot. And here I was, stuck in the middle of it all, trying to make sense of the madness. Let me tell you, it was a whole mess of emotions to deal with all at once. The aftermath of Roger's crazy Facebook message has been an absolute nightmare. Paul, bless his heart, seems to have swallowed the whole story hook, line, and sinker. I've tried explaining things to him, pouring my heart out, but it's like talking to a brick wall. He's convinced I'm lying through my teeth. And let me tell you, it's tearing me apart. The thought that Paul, the guy I've loved and trusted for 3 whole years, would choose to believe some random message over me, it's gut-wrenching. I never thought our relationship would come crashing down like this. Now, not only am I heartbroken, I'm also dealing with this overwhelming sense of embarrassment. It's bad enough that Paul thinks I'm some sort of cheater and but now it feels like the whole world's judging me too. It's like my reputation's been tarnished overnight and I'm left picking up the pieces. As if things couldn't get any worse, I'm seething with rage towards Roger. How could he do this to me? To us? It's like he's taken a wrecking ball to everything I held dear, and I can't even begin to wrap my head around why. It's been a week now, and Paul still won't so much as look at me. I've tried reaching out, begging for a chance to set things straight, but it's like I'm invisible to him. I knew he had his trust issues, but I never imagined they'd come back to haunt us like this. So here I am, stuck in this never-ending nightmare, wondering where it all went wrong. I'm at my wit's end and I don't know what to do next. How do you fix something that feels so irreparably broken? Update. I just want to express my gratitude to everyone who took the time to comment. There are a few points I want to address before diving into what happened next. Firstly, it's important to note that Paul was well aware of my plans to have coffee with Roger. It wasn't a clandestine rendezvous by any means. Just like Paul has his own friends, both male and female, whom he meets up with one-on-one, this meet-up was nothing out of the ordinary in our relationship. Secondly, I must admit that I failed to mention to Paul that Roger had confessed his feelings for me 5 years ago. It was an oversight on my part, and I acknowledge that. However, in my defense, it had slipped my mind because it happened so long ago, and I genuinely thought it was a closed chapter. Paul and I hadn't delved deep into each other's pasts, so there wasn't a natural segue for me to bring it up, and it simply didn't occur to me at the time. Lastly, I want to clarify that Roger and I didn't share an exceptionally close friendship. We weren't constantly texting or inseparable buddies. Our interactions were sporadic, mostly hanging out occasionally and staying in touch if there was something relevant to discuss. It's essential to understand the context of our relationship wasn't characterized by intense communication or constant companionship. Anyway, after reading through some advice from fellow Redditors, I decided to reach out to Roger via Facebook Messenger once I had regained a bit of composure. I wanted to confront him about his dishonesty. When I messaged him, asking why he lied, his initial response was a vague, "What do you mean?" But I wasn't about to let him off the hook that easily. I continued to press him for answers, but all I got was short, evasive replies. It was frustrating, to say the least. No matter how hard I pushed or how many questions I asked, he never gave a clear admission of guilt or explanation for his actions. Feeling exasperated, I eventually sent him a firm message, stating unequivocally that I had never been involved in any affair with him, expressing my hurt and anger, and declaring an end to our friendship with a strict instruction not to contact me again. His response was a simple, "Okay," devoid of any remorse or explanation. After this exchange, I felt compelled to share the entire conversation with Paul. I didn't have high hopes that it would salvage our relationship, but I hoped it would at least vindicate me from any false accusations. In my message to Paul, I also asked for his perspective on Roger's reactions and my own response, seeking validation that my actions were justified given the circumstances. Paul didn't reply immediately, but the following day he reached out to me with a phone call. Paul shared with me that upon reflection, he found my account of the situation more believable, especially after reviewing the conversation between Roger and me. He pointed out that Roger's responses lacked coherence, and that he now leaned towards the belief that nothing inappropriate had occurred between us. However, despite this shift in perspective, Paul expressed that the trust in our relationship had been damaged irreparably, leading him to conclude that he couldn't continue our relationship. I was taken aback by Paul's decision and couldn't help but express my frustration. I questioned why I was being penalized for something I hadn't done, and my emotions got the better of me, leading to a heated exchange. Looking back, I realize it wasn't my finest moment, but I was overwhelmed with a mix of anger and confusion. Eventually, we managed to calm down and bring the conversation to a more civil close, though it wasn't exactly on friendly terms. Paul agreed to return the belongings I had left at his apartment, scheduling a time later in the week for drop-off. This whole experience has taught me a valuable lesson. From now on, I've decided that any sign of romantic interest from a friend will immediately put an end to that friendship permanently. Moreover, I've resolved never to pursue a relationship with someone who carries around a baggage of trust issues or has a history of being cheated on. It might sound like I'm harboring some bitterness, but honestly, I can't shake the feeling that my commitment and honesty over the past 3 years were utterly pointless. It's disheartening to realize that despite my unwavering faithfulness, I ended up being treated as if I were a cheater. Both Paul and I have been left hurt and alone, despite our efforts to maintain a faithful relationship. In hindsight, it feels like investing so much time and effort into a relationship only to reach such a disappointing conclusion wasn't worth it. It's left me questioning whether it's better to embrace solitude or simply stick to less committed arrangements like friends with benefits, rather than risking another 3 years on a relationship that might end in similar disappointment.